I have a story that happened. Okay, so literally to my cousins, everyone like the moms were like getting into it. Bill, oh, I know this much. I didn't drink the it's like it was like people were drinking. And it's like, okay, it was ridiculous. And like from that point on, just was like straight. She like wrote me a letter, like no, like she should definitely. But she wrote me a letter, like I hadn't talked to her for years. Like after that, like it was just one of those things that was like so bad. I was like, I never was. I would have to go back and Danny, like Danny would be like so sad. What is that? What is that? Oh!
Shouldn't let my wife see that one because my proposal story is not the best. She probably wouldn't be thrilled. Where's Rob? Is he bailing on us?
They all thought I wasn't here anyway, so I figured I just.
I know what was with that. I was like, all this
because last week we weren't sure when,
or if you'd even be on.
Right.
Sure, wasn't where the funny is. Listen, they can't all be. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Maybe my slap video was funnier.
I had some heat lined up, but you guys were
it was a little too risque for our channel, though.
I think Locals intro.
I had some true Gen Z humor lined up, but they thought it was too much.
It was definitely a little on the edgier side. I just got home from work like 7 minutes ago. I jumped in the shower and then she came right downstairs. What's it called? Crazy day for me today. I got a lot going on at home. My daughter, I got to get my daughter a truck. My wife's transmission blew. It's been a little hectic. Before we get started, like 40% of you guys are not subscribed. I don't understand why. Everybody, please.
I understand why, guys.
Well, I get it. But a lot of people have been watching our videos and they're not subscribing. Subscribers help us. You get bigger guests, things like that. So please hit like, subscribe. The other thing, hit our merch store. I don't have any merch on today. I need drip.
I got the new one.
I'm religious, not spiritual. Look at that. Yeah. Beautiful. I got to order one of those.
That's a good color.
And then join us on Locals. We do a lot of things on Locals. And then sometimes if they're really good, we'll kick them over to YouTube a couple days later. But you guys will get a sneak peek at some of the good stuff over on Locals. It helps us keep the lights on over here. So if you guys
have less than 30 people left to join Locals before we get
trickling in a couple every episode. We got to hit 500. Come on, guys. You guys enjoy the show. Help support your friends. Now today, we'll get right to it. We'll get right into it. We won't bury the lead.
It's because Anthony wants to go to bed.
I'm not going to make a long show tonight. I saw Lila Rose getting piled on to the point where it actually made Tim Pool today. Did you see that, Nick?
I did, yeah.
I think I sent the clip, Rob. Let's play the quick Tim Pool clip.
You sent the machine guns are legal clip.
It's above that, I'm pretty sure.
That's the Tim Pool clip. It's from that video.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Okay.
I just named it wrong. Yeah.
I mean, she's getting pounded from a lot of people. So he did a story on this and then took a pause to discuss
phrasing.
What'd I say?
Nothing.
It's overruled. And so long as Donald Trump wins, I'm just going to pause real quick. This is why I want to insult those pro-lifers who are like, if you're not pro-life, you don't get pro-life votes. Like, dude, shut your mouth. This is about more than you. The gains made from the Trump Supreme Court for all of us have been so tremendous. Why don't you go whinge somewhere else and go fundraise off something else? Trump is not going to give you a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, okay? But he is going to sell chocolate, right? My point is this. You're not going to get everything you want, but the dude literally gave you a Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade. Why don't you sit down and shut up and accept these massive wins? If Kamala Harris wins, our gun rights are getting taken away. She's going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to overturn all of these decisions, and they're going to revert this country back to its hell state that it was in before Trump got these.
So that's about it. She's been getting hammered. So Lila Rose came out, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, and she says, if you're not pro-life, you don't get pro-life votes. I think she said something along those lines. And then Rick Barrett tweeted this morning. He said, This is more of a reaction by the right in terms of the fact that since Roe has been repealed, Pro-Life Inc., including Lila, seemingly stood on the sidelines while the death cult has run unopposed throughout the states. But now she's going to come out and speak out against Trump. Where has she been when she was needed at the state level? And I think that's a perfect assessment. I said the pro-life movement is in shambles, not because of Trump and Vance, but because the Pro-Life Inc. So Pro-Life Inc. saw Roe as the end-all be-all. And I don't ever thought they'd get it overturned. They never had a game plan for after Roe gets overturned, what do we do? There was so this has always been about the national stage, the March for Life in Washington, D.C. There was never any plans that if Roe got overturned, what are we doing at the state level to make sure that states like New York and Vermont don't enshrine it into their constitution?
That's because it's never really been about pro-life. When when a group like Live Action spends 1% of their revenue on advocacy, it's clearly not about being pro-life.
Man, I want to be careful here because I've been under the dog pile before. Like I have said the wrong thing and been under the dog pile, right? And
then why did you tell me to target this video specifically at Lila Rose?
You're sick. No, I just want to be, because a thumbnail's a thumbnail. What do you mean? But I want to be careful and not just totally crap on what Live Action does. Live Action does serve a purpose. They are geared towards informing people, things like that. But at the same time, you have it as this money-making machine, and it's done at the national level. And it's always been about the spectacle of it. It's never been about actually planning for a contingency if we get this thing overturned. And the thing is, Trump gave us the Supreme Court that overturned Roe. What we're asking for at this point, I understand how, as pro-lifers, how disgusting it is to hear a guy like Trump or even a Catholic like J.D. Vance try and say, look, we're not going to, we won't support a federal abortion ban. That is a hypothetical that will never, ever happen. There will never be a national abortion ban that is going to show up on Trump's desk that he's going to sign into law. It's just never going to happen.
Well, then they should have said that and not that, no, we won't sign it.
I agree. I'm not defending their position on that. I'm going to let you go, Nick. I just want to get a couple more.
Oh, you're good. Here. I'm just saying, yeah.
Because I know you have a lot to say on this. This is now a state's issue, which is what we always wanted. Now it's at the state level. I kind of like the fact that we are no longer voting for president based on this lip service issue, which it has always been. Trump, what we're mad about is that Trump's not paying lip service to our cause. Because all it is lip service. This is not.
But that's every political issue nearly.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, like there's very little. This election might be this and the last one. There might be some real differences in terms of like the trans stuff and maybe the war stuff. But prior to that, I mean, come on, for the last 200 years, there's been very little difference between the two people you're voting for. It's all lip service.
Yeah, I agree. At the same time, I think both parties love this issue because it riles their base up.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
It riles their base up, and you could go rah rah. We got the most pro-life president in history, and we got him in 2016, and he gave us the judges to we hit our goal, right? And then it gets kicked back to the states, and we fumble the ball, and now we're mad at Trump. I don't get it.
Yeah. Tim Pool, you're right. Tim Pool is right. I mean, the issue that I keep running into is Catholics who oftentimes rightly criticize Trump and J.D. Vance over their positions without, particularly with Trump, looking at what he has said for 3-4 decades. Trump has always said, you can go back to interviews in the 90s where he says, I don't believe that Roe v. Wade should be in place because it suppresses the states. I think this should be a states' rights issue. He talks about like his personal views on like certain limits given to abortion, etc. Overall, he's been very consistent on this. I criticize him, right, from my moral perspective, which is objective, right, and that's good. But you're right. The reason that the pro-life movement is failing is because of a simple issue. Culture, right, is always going to be upstream from politics. What we see right now in the United States is the vast majority of individuals, including Catholics, which we're about to see, support abortion, support things that we would find immoral. Mm-hmm. And so for us to expect that Trump in a secular society is going to be this Leo the ninth character out of nowhere, this King David out of nowhere.
Or
is
even
just very
Constantine. Like,
yeah, it's unrealistic. And that's why if you can, Rob, I sent in the chat, should be like the last thing or one of the last things for me. It's 3 studies. We don't have to go over the studies. I just wanted to show people like the charts on them.
Yeah, I got them.
That show Catholic belief in the United States specifically over the 3 hot button issues of abortion, contraception, and same-sex marriage. And some of these will surprise you guys. Maybe some of these will not, right? And so when we look at this, right, this is a study, right, done from Gallup poll. This is back in 2012. Among national adults, right, in general, 89% in general support or think contraception is morally acceptable. 82% of Catholics in the United States.
And I think the recent Cara poll of Catholics was more like 89 or 90.
Yeah, it's always up there in the 90s.
What's going on here is we are losing the propaganda war.
Yeah.
If Trump thought being pro-life was a winning issue, that's what happened last election. Do you remember who spoke at the Republican National Convention last election? You had a nun speaking there. Didn't you have Lila Rose at that convention?
That I don't remember, but yeah, they had the really base nun that was there.
Very pro-life that last convention, right? And he lost. And everybody told him, it's because you went too hard on the pro-life stuff. Trump is
to be fair, I mean, he didn't lose.
I know, but you got to realize where he's coming from, right? We all know that, but he went hard in that last election. He was the first president to speak at a March for Life. He was where he's a guy who will do what his constituents want. So he's looking at it and he's saying, okay, this is a losing issue at this point. He's hearing it from all sorts of Republicans telling him, you got to back off of this stuff because this is their issue on the other side.
Lila needs the big salary because her car insurance premiums are massive.
And the thing is,
they're huge.
That's
the thing about Lila is, if she's going to say, I can criticize Trump because we should be able to criticize our own side, then we have to be able to criticize Lila because she's on our own side, right? So I think Lila steps her feet into waters that she doesn't belong stepping into quite frequently. The last time I think,
and I don't even know if she's on her own side. I mean, maybe with abortion, but other than that, she's incredibly.
That's my point. The last time her theology's all over the place. She's basically a feminist. Like, I understand we're going to catch so much crap in the comments. Why are you attacking Lila? Why are you attacking
Lila Rose? Is a left Cath. She's just one that happens to be against abortion.
Yeah, she's got very feminist theology, and I'm going to criticize her. If she's going to criticize Trump, I'm going to criticize her. I think there's a lot of issues with how much she pays herself for what she does over there. And I think that a lot of people are bringing that up. And she jumped in. She didn't just jump in and say, hey, this is wrong what Trump did. She actually tried to mobilize her capacity as an influencer to get people to not vote.
I know. Which right now, it's like Tim Pool said, if you recognize, if we lose this election, they're going to pack the Supreme Court. That is their open stated goal, is to expand seats on the Supreme Court and to pack them, which you guys can just kiss goodbye any advances that you made. I mean, she's very, very clear that she wants to sign a federal abortion bill, right? Kamala Harris. And so what are you guys, I mean, you have the opportunity right now in your states to campaign locally, to get involved, to canvass, etc., to try to change the culture in your state, right? Or if you don't like your state, go to another state that's maybe closer and try to change it there. You can do that right now. The issue is that we're never going to, unless we have some type of like massive societal collapse, have a federal abortion ban. It's just not going to happen. So in the meantime, why don't you vote for the guy who at least says, hey, I've given you the opportunity to make your voices heard and go vote on this issue in your states, versus the person who says, you don't have an option, we're just going to go ahead and mandate this. And then before I kick it back over to you guys, Cigar Mode, real quick, shout out. I like your name, pretty good. 82% of Catholics are utterly ill-catechized as a result of the Second Vatican Council. I would argue 82% of Catholics in this study know better and just deny the faith, and so they're just not Catholic. Because if you want to pull up, Rob, one of the other studies, like the one on abortion specifically, because it touches what we're talking about. I have that. pretty wild how many Catholics in the United States accept abortion, quote unquote. So this right here, this is done by, I believe it's Pew Research.
It's hard to get to a size that's readable here.
Hey, there you go. So this is broken down into Catholics who, like, depending on their mass attendance, right, weekly, less often, etc. Overall, though, when we look at the studies of just those who consider themselves Catholic, right, without getting into the theological weeds of who is really a Catholic, 56% in the United States. 56%.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's really the same more as than that, regular. It's 90% because the correct answer here is only this 10%.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, look at the group that says illegal in all cases, no exception.
It's bigger than the group that believes it's illegal, should be illegal in all cases.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I'm like, people need to understand the world that we're living in. Like, my point is this, kind of like your point, Anthony, about like, if she's going to criticize Trump, we can criticize her. My issue is that a lot of times people are getting on their high horse and saying, well, why isn't Trump being moral? And my point is, our church is not even moral, and we're doing nothing about it.
He's actually following the lead of our hierarchy. Our hierarchy is inviting pro-choice. I don't want to say the A word too much; it'll kill the stream. Like the hierarchy is bringing pro-choice people into the Vatican. What do you think the president is going to say? He is paying lip service to this issue, but he delivered on it for us, right? Now, what I would like to see is Lila makes $271,000 a year. I don't know, and she's just a podcaster. That's what she does. She gets paid from live. I understand she put this grassroots thing together, and they make a lot of money, and they do a lot of positive propaganda. Propaganda is important. And I do think live action is very important, what they do. I don't want to downplay what they actually do. I think like everybody's ripping on their 990, and it's like they do have a lot of salaries there. They do a lot of video production. My issue with Lila is that she is the face of this organization, and she wants to be the national spokesperson for this, but she's not helping any bit at the state level. Nobody, no pro-life. The best thing you see are like some of the Franciscan priests that are getting arrested, things like that. Yeah. But there's really no state level grassroots kind of stuff. And the thing is, if you want to talk about Lila, I mean, you go back to 2020, powerful write-up on the faith of George Floyd, rest in peace and may justice be served. Like, this is the kind of, when you put the over empathetic woman in charge of a movement,
that's an overly redundant statement.
Yeah, all right. It's just when you put someone like her in charge of an organization, you're going to get someone who's very feelings based. We've discussed her before because of her theology on
Israel, but also the kingdom, like not being an earthly kingdom. Like she's all over the place. She's still a Protestant. She just happens to be Catholic. Like she still has that Protestant lean to her, So look, I'm grateful for what she does in the propaganda war, but like, who is she to throw this election out the window when they're actually having abortions at the freaking DNC? Like, you're talking about an issue that is not a national issue right now. It just isn't. It needs to be at the state level, and it needs to stay that way. Specifically because we can't be just voting for president based on a single issue anymore. It needs to be, I'll tell you right now, I didn't care that much because Trump, he's not my favorite candidate that I've ever seen. Like, I know Nick loves him, but he is not Trump from 2016. He's much softer on a lot of things, but I'll tell you what motivated me was that freaking RFK speech the other day when RFK came in, because the three issues that RFK was talking about with the food industry and children's health, with foreign wars, and the censorship thing. Like, those three things are so freaking important right now that if he has any kind of influence inside the Trump administration, I think that RFK speech the other day was probably one of the best speeches I've heard from somebody in national politics. I don't know, since Trump was running in 2016.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. People should go and watch that. But you're right. When we look at the landscape of what's at stake at the moment, I thought about this today, and a lot of other commentators have said this. What is the likelihood of Kamala Harris getting us into a serious foreign war, particularly just because she is a woman who wants to be like, hey, look, I can be like the boys. I can get us into a war and I can be commander in chief. We're doing the sassy lady thing. There's a really high possibility of that happening. Do you think
history shows it's likely?
yeah, and so like, but we're in an era with nuclear weapons, modern weapons. It's gonna be a bloodbath.
She's going to do whatever they tell her to do. She's not. There's a reason she is not sitting down for interviews. The woman is an empty shell. You're talking about a continuation of the Biden administration. Biden has,
which is just a continuation of the Obama administration.
Yeah. But no, it's worse. I really think it's. I think you're right. Like I don't disagree with you. But
yeah. I mean, things have progressed. You know,
it's ratcheted more extreme
stages. It's just such an empty shell of a. Like I understand the deep state's been running things for a very long time. It's been since George Bush and Clinton. Like it's been a long time.
Really
but
long time.
There were some things that. You know, there was at least a person that could actually speak coherently about issues at times and things like that. Like we're in a point now where you're actually you're voting anybody that votes for that side. Like, I don't understand what reality you live in. Like, what world do you live in that you want this system in place that there is not an actual person running it? It's just a conglomerate of actors behind the scenes pulling the strings, and there's not even a face there's not even a person to blame when things go wrong anymore.
Yeah.
She would try to get us into a war, but pick the wrong country in accident. She'd be like, yeah, nuke Prussia, guys. Prussia. Whoa, wait. That's different from Russia? Oh, no.
Yeah, she's not. You are talking about an empty shell of a mind in that woman, you know?
Well, what's just so phenomenal to me is the reality that like we see Ukraine invading the Bosque region of Russia, right? Like 2 weeks ago. How much of the news actually covered that outside of alternative media? Like no one was talking about it because everyone has been, for the most part, shielding Kamala Harris up until like you're starting to see some kind of hesitation because I think we're on like day 38, 39 or something of her not taking an official interview from any mainstream reporters, actual sit down interview from them. So they're 1000% covering her up right now. They're trying to cover her up. And the reason that they're trying to cover her up is because they are terrified that when she goes out into public, she is going to botch it by just speaking. That's partially why I think we mentioned it a little bit earlier. When it's coming up to this next debate, right? This next debate on September 10th, it finally got approved today. What have you seen in the last 48 hours the media trying to do? Trump is trying to change the debate rules. Trump is trying to get out. He's a coward, yada, yada, yada. And what is it in reality? Harris is trying to change the debate rules that Biden set forward in the beginning of the year. Thankfully, they've kept the same ones. So Trump is going to be more linear coming up in this debate. But it's just wacky. It's just wacky what they're trying to do at the moment.
So somebody clicked on the video because they saw the video title, which I argued with. I didn't argue with him. Rob had a different title. I'm like, no, let's go with this. Let's go with this.
You just need to capitalize destroyed.
Yeah, but she was destroyed by MAGA. So I saw Ashley St. Clair going after her. I saw every like right wing from as much as Tim Pool going after her and like addressing this issue, and everybody's just slamming her nonstop. I'm trying to find some of the I should have put them into the.
You guys hear about the supposed top Spanish apologist no one's ever heard of who went Lutheran?
Yeah, no, we talked about it in the chat the other day. I was like, I'm not surprised because there's actually a whole lot of Catholic apologists who are becoming Protestant again. And I said, like, there's one reason why, but mainstream Catholic media doesn't want to talk about it. We all know what the reason is, though. So, because you're bad if you talk about that. But this is a good comment. We must vote for Kamala to save democracy, even though she dropped out in 2020 because she had no support.
She literally got 1% of the primary, right?
Yeah, Tucker Carlson talked with Robert Kennedy Jr. maybe it was a day or two ago. It was very recent, right after he dropped out. And one of the things that Robert Kennedy Jr. brought up, and he brought this up in his speech, is that Kamala Harris, like the Democrats claim to be the party of democracy, but what have they done? They rigged their entire primary to keep him, right, Robert Kennedy Jr., and other candidates out of the primary to keep Biden protected, right? So they keep him out. They won't let the people actually decide to vote. And then when Biden is hoisted out by an internal coup, they decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and coronate Kamala Harris, which we all knew that the Democrats coronate their candidates anyway. So they coronate her.
But I still don't understand the coronation of her, man. Did you see the clip of Gavin Newsom? There's a clip of Gavin Newsom. I saw Glenn Greenwald posted it where he's on with Pod Save America, and they're like, so what do you think of you know, the transition into Kamala? And he's like, oh yeah, real fair system we had. They're like, and they're laughing about it. I'm telling you, even the people on that side see how insane this is.
It is.
Like, I don't think people really grasp how insane it is that this woman was just installed. They purposely subverted the primary so that nobody could run against Joe Biden. Right? They made sure Robert F. Kennedy could not run against Biden so that there would be no shot. They told Biden, yeah, I'm going to be the candidate. I'm going to be the candidate. And they actually robbed him of that candidacy. He didn't want to leave. They just robbed it from him and placed this woman in his place without a single vote. She's the most unpopular politician in a generation. And we're all just sitting by like I still don't understand why Trump debated Biden so early. Like, how did we not see that as a setup? Like, why were we letting them set that debate in June? How did we not see what they were doing there?
Well, I think it wasn't a common consensus on their party. I think the reason that Biden has really been absent from the limelight over the past few weeks is because he genuinely is absolutely furious and super sad and depressed about being hoisted out. I believe that you saw internally there was a side of the party that legitimately wanted to, you know, we're riding with Biden. They were legit about that. And then there was the other portion that said, yo, dude, you can barely get out of bed in the morning. You're not going to be able to defeat Trump in a second debate. It's over. And so they hoisted him out. This is also why you bring up a good point about her being the most unpopular candidate in forever. This is partially why I'm really skeptical of all of these push polls that are coming out. Aside from the fact that if you guys go and you actually read the data of a lot of these polls and you find out, oh, interestingly, like 60% of the respondents of this poll were Black women. That's nothing fishy about that. Things like that.
They make up 6% of the population.
Exactly. What makes no sense to me is that a lot of these polls are done by the same firms which 1 month ago were saying that she is the most unpopular vice president in human history. But now all of a sudden, everyone loves her. Everything's good. If you want to talk about psyops and shadow campaigns, look at the polling industry. So much of them are pushed polls. Now, of course, she does have some legit enthusiasm over there, but so much of them is push polls. A lot of these push polls and pushed ads that you guys see online on YouTube, on social media and stuff. You know what they're funded by?
I don't believe. Listen to me. Polling is such propaganda. It's nonsense.
A lot of it is, yeah.
There is no chance this woman is actually polling, even with Trump. I saw a clip of Don Lemon going out and he was asking people in Philadelphia about Kamala Harris. They're like, I don't even know who that lady is. Like, they don't even know who she is. There is no chance she is, even with Trump in the polls. This is all fake. It's a facade. The whole thing's a smokescreen. It's just to cover whatever they can manipulate behind the scenes.
Like we talked about in the Italy episode when you were gone, plebiscites and polls have always been used to, you know, they've always been made up and fake 100%. In order to achieve the revolutionaries' goals.
Yeah, it's propaganda.
Look, you're seeing another color revolution within this election. It happened in the last election. What they do is they make it look like it's such a tight race so that when the election happens, neither side believes the other side won. Like, it doesn't even matter if Trump wins, the other side won't believe it was a legitimate election. You're going to tell me there is any scenario where you would believe there's any scenario where you would believe Kamala legitimately won? Like, honestly, Nick,
no.
Do you really think there's any scenario where you would say, okay, yeah, she won?
There's only maybe one. And honestly, it would be the scenario that we do have, whether we like it or not, a large percentage of the country, which are just NPCs.
Yeah.
That would be the one and only circumstance.
I don't know, man. I think.
But after this election, I don't honestly blame anybody who doesn't think it, because it's like, look, the guy's been shot. We have a second indictment today, which we could talk about if you guys want.
So another ridiculous grand jury that they pushed through to bring him up on charges for the election again. Dude, even I see Mark Zuckerberg comes out and talks about the election interference, you know, in the last election, and he's saying the Biden administration asked me to censor this, and this. No. The Trump administration asked you to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. That wasn't the Biden administration. That was the Trump administration. It wasn't really the Trump administration. It was this system that is behind the Democrats that was running the deep state, who during the last election, while Trump was still president, so it was technically his administration, but it was like, so Zuckerberg came out and he said, oh, the Biden administration pressured us to censor information on COVID, pressured us but also pressured us on the Hunter Biden laptop story. That wasn't the Biden administration yet. He hadn't been elected yet. This was the deep state under Trump pressuring them to make sure their guy got in. Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. Like somebody said it in the chat before. They said, I'd rather have Lila Rose as president than Trump. That is an insane thing to say. I'm sorry, but that is absolute insanity.
Yeah, no way. Yeah, no, this is where it's going to come down to, ultimately at the end of the day, you see that Robert Kennedy Jr. has a very likely shot at being health secretary. We know that Trump has promised Elon Musk some type of position inside of his cabinet, which is pretty interesting in and of itself. So we are starting to see this major reform happen. This is what I think will be interesting. Trump has come out in his last interview and more or less apologized, but more or less admitted that he was wrong in a lot of his picks for cabinet positions, for high-level offices in this last administration, because he didn't know really what he was doing. I mean, you guys got to give him a little bit of credit in the sense that it's like, okay, this is a total outsider, no military nor government experience, crashes through a uniparty system, and it's like, all right, guys, I'm in the office. What do I do now? I'm kind of figuring this out as I go along, you know. I mean,
yeah, I do give him a little leeway. I even give him a little leeway on the COVID stuff, because it was an election year. He was in a jam where it was like he was kind of in the same boat we're in now with this issue, with the life issue, where he was with COVID. Like, so many people were so terrified that he was kind of just like, if that was just a legit straight up election, there was not even a contest, he was taking that away. And it's kind of a similar situation now.
But if he gets RFK Jr. in there as health and human,
so look, okay, so you
said,
all right, so Elon and RFK, right? Elon, the conversation Trump had with Elon, those are the conversations that frustrate me a little with Trump, because he's not actually listening sometimes, and he hears buzzwords, and then he'll go and he'll answer what he wants to answer. But Elon was specifically talking to him and saying, listen, the way you get the way you get inflation down is to cut government spending down. So it's like if you could put Elon in charge of something with financial, look what he did with Twitter. He knocked the Twitter staff down by 80%. The guy knows how to get things done efficiently. He could go in and just gut all these government programs and just go, we're cutting down to 20% and we'll be just as efficient.
At the same time, Elon pays you money on Twitter, and there's just no way that points to good decision making.
Listen, so if he could do that right now, where do you actually think RFK would make the most impact?
So for me, honestly, I would love to see him in charge of the CIA. That'd be the funniest. That would be the funniest thing of all time, because it's just like, all right, boys, yeah, you killed my my dad and my uncle, and so I'm gonna show up and take this book part. But overall, yeah, actual impact, definitely health. Okay,
overall. So I'd either want him at either the HHS, Health and Human Services, or NIH. I don't know which one has more power. Whichever one has more power to actually control, like, what the FDA approves, things like that. Like, I'm telling you, man, these conversations he's had with people over the last few weeks. Like, I started throwing things out in my house. Like, I'm done with all the fruit, corn syrup and I'm done with all of it.
So did you throw the Fruit Loops out before or after you said steak and eggs was stupid for breakfast?
Steak and eggs is the breakfast. It is.
Of course it is. Dude, my food takes drive people insane. But I think, okay, so if you put RFK as Attorney General, that might actually give him more authority to prosecute the people in the deep state. If you put him as head of the CIA, he may just be high fructose corn syrup in A1.
That's funny. That's really funny.
So if you put him at the head of the CIA, they will just block him from seeing the stuff he shouldn't see, I think. Where if you put him as Attorney General, he'll have authority with the FBI to actually go and investigate things from a deeper level. So I would either say head of, something with the health, either NIH or HHS, whichever one is more powerful, or Attorney General. Those would be the places to put RFK. I don't think he's going to get either one, but even him having influence in that department would make me happy.
Yeah, I honestly think if Trump gets in there, he's going to put him in charge of one of these. The only reason I say this is just because, look, I mean, we see within the last 24 hours, Tulsi Gabbard, that was kind of a given, but she's come out and endorsed Trump. And she 1000% has a lot of influence. What we're starting to see is this shift in Trump where Trump is recognizing that in order to really get his agenda across, which let's just be honest, Trump's agenda is like 1990s Democrat policy. Right,
Mhm.
it's not like that radical in and of itself. Thank you guys for the super chats. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
guys.
also, if you want to throw in,
Any super chats you guys send in, we do split those 3 ways. So we always do appreciate that. It's the best way we can help Nick out because the kid comes here every freaking episode with us, and there's not much we can do for him. So any super chats that do come in, we always do cut Nick in on those.
yeah, it's much appreciated. My point is, I think Trump is moving the party. He's moved the party closer to a working man's party concerned about economic issues, including immigration that touches upon economic stuff, and talking about things like, okay, let's put America first in the context of not getting into foreign wars, protecting our border, actually having an actual border, and actually having a good economy. Therefore, let's get all of the individuals who've been sidelined by the warmongers in the Democrat Party, by the censorship elites in the Democrat Party, over to my side. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gabbard is put in charge of something military-wise. That would be interesting. RFK is put in charge of health and human secretary. That would be pretty interesting. Elon as some form of advisory role with censorship, or even with the economy would be amazing. Because that was one of the big things they talked about in that interview was just slashing regulations. I
don't think people understand how. All right, so Elon's like, I want to build like a bullet train that goes from New York to California, the thing that go 800 miles an hour. And he can't do it because the regulations are so insane that it would be $1 trillion project as opposed to a $300 million project. It's just the regulations that they have in place are literally strangling us as a country, that we can't get anything done. All this money is just wasted on red tape and pointless jobs. If you really did get, man, Trump's got me.
To be fair, they'd build that train, and then they'd let a woman at the helm, and boy, that would be spectacular.
Well, it's Elon running it. The thing's gonna run itself.
Yeah, because autopilot on Teslas does just so great.
I've been popping in Christian's chats a little bit lately.
I'm sorry, Christian.
At the end of the day, what we're going to have to see is, if we want to see real economic flourishing in the United States, massive deregulation needs to take place. That's just the only way in our economy. But the problem is that we have a mixed economy, which is half socialist, half capitalist. And all the sucky parts, really, most of them anyway, most of the sucky parts happen to be socialist regulations that we see strangling our economy. That's just the reality of it. I mean, it's just, I think about my dad, right? I love my dad to death. He's like my absolute best friend on this planet. And he and I are always talking about taxes, because taxes in Texas, right? State taxes are just insane. But you know how insane these things get? They get down to the insanity of, okay, you need taxes on your septic. To put in a septic, you need a special tax per month for your septic system. I'm like, Dad, how did we go from fighting a war over the price of tea and stamps to, where we're gonna like break down your number ones and number twos? We're gonna tax you on that.
You want to know how? Because we are all so comfortable that none of us are willing to actually stand up for anything anymore.
Exactly.
So we are so desensitized, and we're all just so living in luxury that none of us want to give up our comforts, and you're talking about a generation of guys who actually went to war over a tea. I mean, I know it was a little deeper than that, but the Boston Tea Party was just this. I know it was a lot more than that, but
not so much actually.
It was taxation without representation. It was just this encroachment of the government upon the citizenry, and we have allowed it to get to the point where you get paid. You pay your federal and state tax. Every dollar you spend, every dollar you spend is taxed. Then it's just.
Do you know what's disgusting? My Zyn doubled in price because of Tim Walz.
Yeah,
in the last 2 weeks.
What do you guys pay? What do you guys pay for Zyn over there?
I buy the off brand, but the off brand went from $5 to $9 in the last 2 weeks.
Dang, dude,
that's the off brand. What is the on brand?
The off brand. I don't know. I think Zyn was like 2 for $12 a month or two ago, and now it's probably
2 for $12.
Now it's probably $8 or $9 for
so
one.
I get it for at 7-Eleven, I get it for $5.79. Everywhere else, it's like $7.50.
Wow, Zyn might be more expensive in Minnesota than New York.
Yeah, but cigarettes are $20 a pack here.
In Minnesota, they're like 11.
Yeah, they're $20 a pack here. All right, so let me ask you this: what are we actually hoping for in this law? Are we, because we know they're going to pull the dude? I'm telling you right now, if on election night we hear "stop the count," I'm gonna lose it. Like that should be a Boston Tea Party moment. If you hear "stop the count" on election night, and then you hear a broken pipe in Minnesota, and you hear like that should literally make us all go crazy, right? That should be that Boston Tea Party moment. But are we all just hoping too big to rig? Is that what we're going for here?
No, I don't think. I think that individuals who spout that are typically just giving that as a kind of like a straw man cover. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen two major states defortify. So we see Virginia going to all paper ballots.
Paper ballots, that's very good.
Arizona, right? You have to show legal proof of residency and photo ID by the Supreme Court in their decision.
Wow.
Right? And so we are seeing these, of course, as I've told people for the last 4 years, if you've actually followed work by like Scott Pressler or other people on the ground, you've seen other states defortify. When you look at specific...
What's going on with the Texas Attorney General finding them trying to register illegals like that? Like somebody put up a thing today showing all the states how many people tried to register to vote without photo ID, like because you do need ID to register to vote, I believe, in most places. And it was like 1.5 or 2 million people in Texas tried to register to vote without any government identification.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of attempts because the Democrat Party here is just off the wall insane. It's the party of Beto O'Rourke down here. You know, hell yeah, we're going to take away your firearms, etc. Thankfully, in Texas, what we do have is you have to have photo ID to vote, right? It has to be a government issued photo ID to vote. Thank the good Lord. And so that has been a great stalwart about it. To answer your original question, is it going to be, are we trying to be too big to rig? No, I think that you see if you look at the raw numbers, we see massive Republican registrations in multiple large battleground states. We also see the Trump campaign is very, very intent on election watching this time and also getting volunteers out to do stuff. This is what I will tell people. There's going to be shenanigans.
Yeah,
right.
Of course. I'm expecting shenanigans. I'm saying, have we shorted up enough that we have a shot?
What I would say is this. So you guys know I'm the eternal white pill guy. I always think that we should have white pills at the end of the day, but they are going to try to do bad stuff to this. So what can we do in the meantime? Some of it has to be things like practical, get on the ground and do something. A lot of guys who just black pill out there also have never dragged a friend to the polls, haven't chased a ballot, haven't every single day. I talk to about three independent voters to try to get them to vote for Trump.
I don't know independent voters.
I don't know. I gotta get on better social media.
Yeah. Do you really think there are still undecided people out there?
There is. I talk to a lot of them, and a lot of them it's because honestly, it depends on the person. Honestly, sometimes it's just they are one of those normies that doesn't get involved in politics. They're just like, I mean, I don't care. I'm just trying to make a living, etc. There's other Catholics who are like, yeah, no, I mean, literally, unless he's Louis the Ninth, I can't vote for him. And I'm like, okay.
I know a lot of those.
Then
you'll never, lot of those, especially online. I know a lot of those who are like,
to be fair, Nick, how do you feel about the SSPX's position about that? That is okay.
Yeah, no, I think that the SSPX's position on this, from what that newer article that I read within the last month or so, I think that it's wrong. I think they're wrong.
You are going against the.
So you take the JP2 position over the SSPX position. That's interesting.
And I do that just because I don't think that. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the official SSPX position, but it's definitely the SSPX's online public statement. But the reason I'd say that is just because I don't think that they're taking Pius XII in context with the theologians who also comment on him in the time, right? It's very important for people to vote because it's like Kennedy Hall said a few weeks ago when we had him on the show, we are going to be run by legitimate communists if we do not get our act together. And
Nick, I'll tell you right now, if you had asked me a year ago or even 8 months ago, I would have told you I wasn't voting this year.
Mm-hmm.
The assassination attempt changed that a lot. Like I think that got me to go, okay, no. This is that and now that my son's 18, I'm like the war thing, man. This stupid war in Ukraine
Scares the death out of me.
I don't think people realize the existential threat that lies there. Like we really are extremely close to World War III right now, and it's just not even in the news, like you were saying. They don't even talk about it as if it's just this far away thing that we're never going to have to get involved with. We at every single turn thwarted attempts to make peace. Like the U.S. government and the Prime Minister of Britain over there. What the hell is this? The guy looks like
Oh yeah, the new one, the new prime
no,
minister.
the last guy, not Keir Starmer, the last guy, the yellow.
Yeah. I forget his name, but yeah,
he actually went over and he put an end to peace talks over there.
Boris Johnson.
Yeah, Boris. I was gonna say Boris Yeltsin. I'm like, Boris.
I'm
Johnson.
glad you knew enough to know that you're
Yeah,
like, no, that's not
Boris.
right.
But the idea that we are going to keep this thing insulated as just this foreign war that's not going to ever affect us is absurd. It will escalate. It will end up with being our troops on the ground, and it will eventually end up being they're going to start drafting people from our country. And my freaking kids, I don't want them getting roped into this.
As we've talked about before, they've already raised the drafting age. They've raised it to 26 now. It's absolutely insane. And
unilaterally.
To answer this is a good thing I do get actually a lot when it talks to independents that I'm talking to online. You're in a deep blue state, deep red state. What's the point of voting, etc.? The reason it's important is because, number one, I mean, some of your local elections, right, could be very competitive and you just don't know it. But then two, if we were to say get a really large popular vote differentiation, then that will give Trump a better mandate. It will give Trump a better mandate to say, hey, look, I got a much larger vote count than my adversary. By the way, people, I'm not anti-SSPX. Some of the people worrying in the chat. I'm not. I'm probably.
No, they just teasing you.
He's pro SSPV. The issue.
Yeah, pro SSPV.
They're all just messing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I don't. Somebody said our takes on politics are always spot on, but I never know if people want us to talk politics.
What's funny is we all kind of have different takes. So what is our take?
Well, I think it's good that we don't all agree in unison. Like it's kind of good to push each other and challenge each other a little bit, right? But also, I just think when you get into an election year, it's affecting every single one of us, right? This is a church issue. The
industry I'm in or adjacent to is like being severely affected by just the uncertainty right now. Like everyone is holding off investing in things because of the uncertainty. So it's rough.
My dad and I were talking about so I'm finishing up my master's pretty soon. And he's like, okay, let's start taking the rest of your money that we have saved for you in college and let's start putting them into IRAs. Let's start trying to figure out good financial steps for you to buy a house one day. And I asked my dad, I said, do you really realistically see if Kamala Harris gets in with her tax proposals, me owning a house one day?
No.
Do you realistically see that?
No.
I don't even see it with Trump getting it. Nick, the freaking situation we're in is so dire. To get us out of this insane inflation. First off, okay, I made 30% more in 2019 than I make now, and everything costs 30% more now than it did in 2019. My company was twice the size it is now back in 2019, and now it's half the size. The government regulations that they're putting in, and not just that, the DEI crap they're putting in. You have women at the helm in charge of the electric company that we work for, and when they see 3 days of heat in a row, if it's over 80 degrees, they shut all construction down in New York because they don't want to have the PR disaster that came when they got a blackout a couple of years ago. So now instead of thinking through it and saying, okay, we still need to get this construction done, people are literally going to not have income if we shut it down. No, we're just going to play the safe route. We're going to let everybody go home. They shut construction down in New York. I'm talking, I have siblings. My brother is freaking getting laid off 1 or 2 days a week in the summer because it's too hot. This is all crap being brought down from the Democratic Party, being brought down from all the nonsense you hear from the left with the DEI, the climate crap, man. It's so insane. They want my uncle to put electric vehicles. They want him to have a 30% electric vehicle fleet by 2027 or something like that. It's like
You're going to be sitting in 3-hour traffic on the way home, and your electric gay little truck is going to just die.
the battery's going to die. Rob, I'm driving. Look, I leave my house at 4 a.m.
I know.
I drive 100 miles into the city. I work all day driving stop to stop. The thing is running all day long. Today I got home at 7:15 tonight. You think an electric vehicle could ever do that? And then so he's like trying to figure out like how he's going to implement this policy. Like, it's just so freaking absurd. He's thinking he might have to just buy electric vehicles and like keep them in the yard and just like make them commute vehicles. So like, in other words,
you would drive to the yard in your little Tesla to pick up your truck
and then get my truck, which would be so catastrophic for me because I'd have to go back to the yard at the end of the day instead of leaving from the last location, which adds another hour to my day that I'm barely seeing my freaking family. It's
just, you couldn't use the work truck. Personally.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Just so sick of yeah, right. Like, I'm still using a work truck at work, right? It's just so, I'm just so tired of all this nonsense that they think they can just look. There are some times where the government can incentivize certain things that are good for the environment, right?
I just have to golf carts.
Home. I mean, I'll be honest, with the amount of traffic we deal with, the golf cart can keep up with me on my way home. But like, there are times where the government can incentivize certain things to clean. Even the way Republicans are viewed when it comes to climate, right? Like, climate is such a dumb word to use. We are not, like, climate change is absurd. It's nonsense. Not that the climate doesn't change.
We should be all for environmental conservation.
Right?
Rational.
Like, we should be for pure air quality. You should care about your rivers and streams by your home. You should not want pollution and litter and crap like that. But this whole idea of this green agenda that they're putting in carbon taxes, and it's just a way for them to implement some kind of power structure over us so that we have one more thing that we have to answer to them for. It's just completely insane, and all of it comes down to power.
What's funny is that they'll say all the recent forest fires are due to climate change, when really it's all due to environmental regulation stopping logging and forest management.
Exactly.
This
is why I tell people to get Trump in, because this is what I'm hopeful. I think Trump is going to be better second time around than first time around. For many reasons, but just two. One, as we've already talked about, his new picks that he's coming up with. But the number two, this is his last time to be in office. And they're so deathly scared of him that they're willing to try to end his life, that they're willing to try to get the guy in jail in freaking August as we are approaching an election. I mean, we have the sentencing in September that I'm sure we'll talk about later on, right? They're so intently scared. Why are they that scared to try to get him out of the way? It's because if he gets into power, especially with his last term, he's going to break all the toys. He's going to do as much as possible. You know why? Because think about it this way. Trump, like him or loathe him, he has a big ego,
because he's kind of a child like that.
Yeah, but think of it this way. It's like he has an ego the size of Trump Tower, right? Trump does. And he wants to be remembered.
Yeah, I think that too. I think he's such a narcissist. He wants to go down as the greatest president in history.
And what do you think he's going to do with his last chance?
Yeah,
he's going to go all freaking out and destroy it all.
Can we play the clip where he talks about regretting some of his choices? Because I didn't hear that clip. I see Nick posted it in the thing. I want to really hear what he actually says there.
It's like a minute. It's pretty short. It's pretty good.
Yes, Nick does have his own channel. It's called The Traditional Thomist on YouTube. Please go subscribe to Nick's channel. He also has a Patreon if you guys want to support Nick. Nick is brilliant. He is probably the greatest addition to this show since Rob.
Aw, appreciate it. Oh, that's funny.
See how I worded that, right?
Really good. I mean, Bob Lighthizer. I had great trade people. I had some great people, but I also picked people that, in retrospect, I wouldn't have picked. But now I know the smart ones, the dumb ones, the weak ones, the solid ones, the ones like you. I know the people. I know everybody, sort of like everybody. And we're going to have a great government. I didn't know. I had to rely on people I'd ask, I don't want to use names because I don't want to embarrass. They're not bad people, but I'd ask people that were rhinos, who do you recommend for such and such a position? All important positions. And they'd recommend some people that were rhinos or something, or weak or not good. And I don't have to ask too much right now. I know the people, and I've known them through fighting and wars. I've known them through because all this stuff. I had great support. Don't forget, I beat Nancy Pelosi. I beat all these people, every one of them. And somebody said, if you look at it, he beat the Clinton family, right? And that was really Obama too, because he was behind her 100% like he was running.
And that's pretty much it. But he goes on and talking about just like some of his regrets. And then when you couple that with him putting RFK Jr. in the spotlight with his huge things on medicine, those two big issues that a lot of right-wing people have had with him, his appointments and then the Voldemort drug, so to speak.
That was a good
he's
one.
very much taking a correction on.
Well, RFK, when he was talking to Tucker, he said that when he spoke to Trump, Trump admitted something similar here. And he said, I made a lot of mistakes, but I want the neocons out. Like, look, the greatest thing Trump could do is that Schedule F fire everybody. Yeah. Like, that's what we want. If that could possibly happen and he cleans house and really actually drains the swamp this time, I don't think he understood. Look, you're talking about a guy who was a business guy. He got in. He didn't know who he could trust, what he could do. He literally got manipulated. The guy's been doing this now for 12 years. So you have to imagine he's learned a few things along the way. I've seen enough of the people that are surrounding him this time to have a little bit more faith in this cabinet than I did in the last one. The last one was atrocious, man. It was just
last one was really mixed. Think of just two things though. Number one, in 2016, I don't even know if he expected he was going to win, because when you see him walk down on that victory lap, he looks a little stunned. He's like, "Oh wow, okay, we won. Let's go." But then number two, he was just attacked by the media, and as all Republicans are up to that point. Now he's gone through 2 impeachments, multiple, let's throw the guy in jail, right? And an assassination attempt. This guy's mad. This guy's mad. He has all of that angst behind him now. And so I think he is going to go full Schedule F mode.
Yeah, Steve, this isn't hopium. This is kind of more like if this what we have now continues, I know Steve is hoping that the collapse happens so that we do break off and just, there's secession. Like, Steve wants secession. I just don't see that ever happening, especially if you keep
it's definitely going to happen. I just don't know if it happens peacefully.
Well, with
there's gonna be a lot of
with the apparatus that is in place right now, it won't happen. They won't allow it. It'll be locked up. Where I think if you got Trump in, it might push that secession. I think you'd have states like California saying we're leaving the union, and that could lead to a peaceful secession. I think if you have the apparatus that's in now, I think you have no shot at it. Look, you have to think about what Trump brought that first term. What he brought was the scales falling from our eyes. So many of us were just like buying into the propaganda. I can't say so many of us. Me personally, I was essentially a neocon without knowing it. I didn't understand it. I was a Fox News guy. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. It wasn't until these alternative media things started popping up that you were able to get a different perspective, start hearing about how did we end up at war with Russia? You start finding out, oh wait, we actually triggered this whole thing.
Look at the last 2 GOP nominees, John McCain and Mitt Romney.
That's what I mean. And I voted for both
Trump
of them.
is an infinitely better step than freaking John McCain. Do you think right now, if we had, let's just say, John McCain versus female Obama 2.0, if you will, but more radical in many ways, right? Would we have any hope for the avoidance of World War III?
That's my biggest concern. That's my biggest concern is World War III right now. And look, I do think the American empire is on fumes right now. I do think it's coming to an end. It's how that comes to an end that I think that can still be figured out. The pro-life movement was doomed from the beginning. What pro-lifer has ever talked about the dogma of limbo of the infants? Michael Lofton, what do you mean? Well, Kennedy's popping in late. I was texting Kennedy earlier. He's like, "What's this Lila drama?" He's like, I don't keep up with any of this stuff. But if to to get back to that real quick, this is somebody wrote a post. Maybe I'll send it to you real quick, Rob. Let me see. I'll send it to the chat. So you can pull it up.
Not to derail you on that, I was just going to say one comment about the secession thing, which is I think if we are to have secession, we'll have it. But I think more than likely, it's way more foreseeable to see some type of like dictatorial empire before you would see secession.
Yeah, I think so too. That's I really do think that too. I think you will see
the two would happen hand in hand. Yeah,
they could happen hand in hand.
Look, okay, what we are looking at right now is with the advance in technology, they will be able to. I mean, people talk about Neuralink and they talk about getting the chip in your hand and things like that. I'm not going to get the mark of the beast. Like, we carry the stupid mark of the beast around with us everywhere we go. You freaking leave your house. You're like, where's my chip? I need my chip with me. You forget your phone when you run into a store. You're like, oh, I'm naked. What am I going to do without my phone? We're online and we're scrolling through Twitter when we're online. It's just the amount of control they will have over us, especially if you have this administration continue on, you will start seeing things like the digital currency, things like that, just more ways for them to manipulate our behavior, to keep us in line. And that if you step outside of their system, you're doomed. Yeah. So, I mean, we need to do something to take a lurch back a little bit, even if it just delays the inevitable, which probably is coming.
Yeah, exactly. You're right about people's phones. It's like people will freak out more about like, oh, I lost my phone, and they'll just doom scroll for hours and hours and hours. There's so many people that will doom scroll for 4 hours a day, but yet also complain that they have to drive an hour to the Latin Mass. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Our priorities are out of whack. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we can just slow this decay as best we can, I'm for it. Because you know what? At least I'll be 27. I'll get out of the draft age, and maybe I'll be able to be spared.
Yeah, that really is a selfish way to even look at it, right? Because it's what about the next generation? We really want to prevent the next generation from getting roped into it as long as we can. So,
to be fair, Nick, if you see all the old guys are drafting Ukraine, I don't think 27 is going to be outside of the draft.
No, I know. The only good thing at least is that this country is very vast and lots of places to hide. But
the thing is, we'll never be invaded and conquered.
No, we have too many firearms. We have perfect mountain ranges on both sides.
Well, yeah, we'll never be invaded.
What
and
about
conquered,
the Kennedys to the north?
The Canadians.
So that'll never happen. We'll never be invaded and conquered. But just like the church,
it's kind of happening already at the southern border, though.
Yeah, but. Yeah, I guess in a way, right? But it can be done from the inside, right?
Yeah,
we can be destroyed from the inside, just like we're seeing happen in the church. Like the parallels between what our country's going through and what the church is going through are really Canada will invade with hockey pucks. And a lot of that has to do with because the deep state is involved in the church and they're meddling in making sure blackmailable cardinals get elected and things like that. I mean, you're seeing these parallels between there's a sense in which Vigano is 100% spot on with the deep state and the deep church. I do think like some areas he goes a little off, but I think he is right about that whole idea of the deep state and the deep church.
I'm gonna go off here in a second. Rob, can you pull up that last study, the one on same-sex marriage and Catholic belief in same-sex marriage? This one goes to show you how absolutely ridiculous, if you will, American quote-unquote Catholic claims are. So we always talk about the rainbow issues as being one of the most serious existential threats to the morality of this country, right? And we're always talking about how this is what really rots our moral system and fabric. When we look at U.S. Catholics, 69% support homosexual relationships, which is 5 points higher than the national average of secular individuals or just everybody else combined. We are a joke. And so you're right, Anthony. I think that the parallels are striking. You're obviously not saying, just so people don't take you out of context, that America is like this great church parallel figure.
Oh, no.
By analogy, yeah. But you're right. It's like the enemies of Christ knew that they couldn't go throw themselves up against the church doors and take over everything by storming anymore. The French Revolution failed. The Muslims have failed, right? The Protestantism has failed, etc. So what's the best thing we do? Let's infiltrate it on the inside. Let's change the teaching slowly but surely. And then you end up where, 82% accept contraception, 53% accept abortion, 69% accept homosexuality. None of these individuals are Catholic. So we had the vast majority of, quote, Catholics who aren't Catholic in the United States. By analogy, we can't take over the United States because they're all filled with firearms. There's wall mountains on either side. We can't just go in and attack them because we'll just die. Okay, so let's sneak in through subversion and change their belief systems. I'm not talking about all the, American Star Spangled da 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 da. I'm talking about let's get them to accept insanity. Men and women don't exist. Two men can get together and call that marriage, right? And let's also have them give all of their money over and sleep in a pod, be with pornography, an AI girlfriend, and call it a day.
AI girlfriend with their stupid their Apple goggles on, just watching 3D corn, and they'll be content. 90% of America will be content with that. That's what's nuts. And so much of that is even when you're talking about the issue that we started the show with the pro-life stuff, the same people up in arms about the pro-life issue with Trump, like, we should be just as outraged about the rainbow stuff, and we're not. It's almost like we let that just like, oh yeah, all right, well, the trans children is too far for us, but we're totally fine with people like Blair White being
I'm fine if two guys decide they want to get married. Just don't force my kids to see it.
Yeah, just that's it. And it's so preposterous that we have gotten to the point, like guys, you are so politically homeless as a Catholic. Like, stop it. You're so politically homeless as a Catholic at this point. The only thing you can do is stave off the cliff as long as possible, So stop focusing on this one issue in a federal election that really has no bearing on it. It's a state issue. If we actually care about this, we should be working at the grassroots level, at our state level. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know how to go about it. So I'm critiquing people without putting my money where my mouth is too. So,
well, like what I do it all the time. What we do just in our local area of Texas is, okay, so in the summer months particularly, you see a lot of this rainbow stuff going around everywhere. Go out and protest. Go out and have conversations with people. Make podcasts about it. Ask your priest to start preaching about it. To my credit, or my credit, excuse me, to the credit of the local priests in my diocese, a lot of them are starting to talk about moral issues. I've heard, I think it's like 3 sermons this year on the subject of corn, contraception, homosexuality, etc. I've never heard that before, right? Yeah. And these are talking like even though these are diocesan TLMs, like I'm pretty surprised.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, I went to a diocesan Novus Ordo Sunday for Ephesians 5 Sunday, and I heard a pretty wild homily, boy.
Our Novus Ordo priest, and not only did they read the full reading, he gave a sermon on submission. It was good.
Yeah, and my priest basically went in and he was like, there are Catholic teachings that are very difficult, and you can cower and whimper away and give in to the culture, or you can understand that Christ gave us these teachings for a reason. It was funny because as soon as the priest starts reading about wifely submission, I just put my arm around my girl. Like, she's just sitting there. She's like, I know.
Well, as long as you enjoyed that reverent Freemason mass with the
Talmud prayer, it's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah, it was just a particular circumstance that came up Sunday, but so, all right, we are going to bring this to a close because I am beyond exhausted. I need some sleep. So Thursday, I have Tim and Steph Gordon coming on, and I'm going to talk about growing up millennial, like growing up in the 90s with them. And I want to talk about our upbringing with fathers who kind of took a back seat to raising us in the faith and kind of let our mothers take that role, I think Tim has a very similar story to me where my mom was the one who really raised us in the faith, and that just wasn't enough for especially young men. So I think it'll be an interesting conversation. I'm not going to go the typical route that Tim goes. I want to try to get into some deeper stuff with him and sleep well, Anthony. Dream
So true.
So yeah, and we're gonna be doing that one a little bit earlier. I don't think Rob could join us; he'll still be at work. So
indeed,
yeah, it's gonna be it'll be it'll be an interesting, fun show. And for anybody that's around our age, man, I think you'll enjoy it. We're going to talk about, you know, the crap of pop culture growing up in that time period and stuff. So
Back in the, what was that, like the 60s for you, or?
Yeah. So I would say I came of age between 95 and 05. Like that was my.
I would say you maybe haven't come of age yet.
I haven't come of maturity yet.
Let's just be honest though, like
old.
95 through 05, like, I mean, for all this the secular nonsense, it was bad, but like there was so much awesome like culture that still came out of that decade.
I think so too. So too. Look, you got to understand, even rock music in the 90s, man. Like we still had new rock music being like, it just all disappeared once the 2000s came and it all went underground. And if you weren't following underground stuff, you just kind of, like we had grunge coming up in our time and stuff.
It's just like, well, everything nowadays is like, I mean, you listen to male singers and it's like, how much estrogen have you had? Like your voice is high pitched. You're like a freaking soprano singing. Like what is your?
No, we had the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC too.
Plus,
no, there was definitely some weird stuff there.
The 80s proved that you. Well, never mind. They weren't really masculine. I mean, look at that hair.
No, the 80s are the origin of the trans stuff we're seeing now, dude.
Hair metal and
the makeup. But I think the 90s were a rebellion against that. Like the 90s were just like this
went from
hard,
glam
masculine,
rock to grunge.
Yeah, but it went grunge to like Metallica, heavy metal, Megadeth, stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to talk. Like if you guys are around, you know, if you guys are in your mid to late 30s,
that's true. And
40s.
you can't claim rock music.
It's true.
Swarthy mongoloids can't claim that.
Brother, you get in trouble on Twitter for that. You better hope we don't get in trouble on YouTube for that.
It's okay. You talked about RFK and his health policies. I'm sure that will get us a second.
Well, I was pretty careful about how I went about it. The last video we did got us a freaking strike right away.
Slap on the wrist, man.
Yeah. So
that's all right. We need to get you guys in.
We will see you guys on Thursday. No local show tonight, but I'll try and put something together on Thursday. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for all the super chats.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Love you guys. Go subscribe to the Traditional Thomas if you are not already. Join our locals, even though we're not doing a local show tonight. Sorry, guys.
To be fair, this was still on locals. It's just
yeah. You guys just aren't getting no bonus show tonight because I do need to get some sleep. So, all right, Rob, take us out.